And please give a warm welcome to retired Air Force Lieutenant General Robert Elder.
Hey, so good afternoon. On behalf of the Air Force Association, welcome again to the Airspace and Cyber Conference 2016. To make sure you're in the right room, the title of this forum is the B-21. One announcement I was asked to make, so I don't forget, is as you exit the doors on the right-hand side, the Mitchell Institute has some of the papers they've done on the bomber, and you're welcome to take one of those. There's no charge, and get some more information on the B-1, or on the bombers in general, I should say. I've got the B-1, the B-2, and of course now our B-21 and B-52. So today's panel will focus on the challenges facing the development of the new long-range strike platform and its place in the Air Force arsenal. General Rand is going to make a short statement, and I think he has a little video for us, and then we'll open it up to questions. There should be cards that you can use. If you want to submit a question, I'll read those questions to the panelists. Our panelists today are, of course, General Robin Rand, the commander of the Air Force Global Strike Command, Lieutenant General Mike Mobile Holmes, Deputy Chief of Staff for Strategic Plans and Requirements, Headquarters, U.S. Air Force, and Mr. Randy Walden, the Director and Program Executive Officer for the Air Force Rapid Capabilities Office. General Rand, I'll turn it over to you.
Thanks, General Elder. My wife Kim's here with me, and I said, "Are you going to stay?" And she said, "That depends. Is it going to be boring?" I said, "I don't know. We'll have to see afterwards." But thank you all for being here. I think we have a good session planned for you. Before I get into a little bit of the why for the B-21, I thought we could get motivated, and I wanted to show you about a 3-minute video about Air Force Global Strike, and I think it'll help tee up some of the questions, because pay attention to the things you're going to see in the video and note some of their ages of the things you're going to see in the video, besides the airmen, okay? So if we could roll that, I'd appreciate it.
A short time ago, an American airplane dropped one bomb on Hiroshima and destroyed its usefulness to the enemy. That bomb has...
We were the only country to ever use an atomic bomb in war. 30,000 feet, looking down on the city. It took 45 seconds from the time it left the aircraft to detonation. The in-between time. The world that was and the world that would be. The crew counted and waited for a flash of light to change forever the way countries talk to each other. Cold Wars, brinkmanship, trust but verify, deterrence. The Cuban Missile Crisis, Khrushchev, Kim Jong-un. Old allies, new enemies. We tell people back home we work with nuclear weapons, and they want to joke about movies they've seen. Diffusing warheads with seconds to spare. Super villains. We laugh, we're human, but they have no idea. Nobody does. It is our duty, our privilege, to maintain the integrity of our nation's shield. We are our nation's shield. We serve in the middle of nowhere, on the edge of history. We serve on the global stage of policy, diplomacy, leverage, and madmen. We're not out here babysitting metal, twiddling thumbs, or flying in circles. We are airmen in the United States Air Force. The world is in constant chaos, so we are on constant alert. We are here to keep the world from boiling over. We work as a team. There can be no weakness. There can be no vulnerability. Never. The world is watching. This is a destructive force so terrifying, its very existence is our weapon. And make no mistake about it, we are here to scare the living hell out of our enemies. Scare them with our power, our resolve, our dedication, our vigilance. We will not be the ones to blink. We are fully aware that should these weapons ever be used, the final page of history is in our hands. You can't live your life within inches of a nuclear weapon and not feel the weight of the world. Our mission is to carry that weight. Theodore Roosevelt said, "Speak softly and carry a big stick." Sticks don't get much bigger than this. Aim high, airmen. All
So I guess with that kind of lead in, I would like to say you saw a lot of great systems in there, great capabilities being performed by great airmen. But as you looked, the B-52, the B-1, the B-2, our ICBM fleet, our UH-1N helicopter, it's time to modernize. It's just that simple. Ever-increasing A280 environment, enemy gets a vote. So for these systems to be survivable, reliable, and efficient, we got to modernize. And the B-21 is going to be a big part of that modernization for our Air Force so we can continue to do the long-range strike mission. So with that, I'll turn it back to you, Bob.
Thanks, General Rand. So I got a couple of questions already come up here, and one of the first ones that I got was for you, General Rand. Can you tell the group here why Raider was chosen as the name for the B-21?
Well, first of all, let's do a secret ballot. Who likes the name Raider? All right, I do too. Even though I'm a staunch Bronco fan, I can't stand the Oakland Raiders. I couldn't be happier with the Secretary-in-Chief's selection of the name. And the big reason I think it came down to is back in the spring, AFA, Secretary James said, let's get inputs from the field from our airmen. So we did that. We had some nominations that came in, hundreds plus maybe thousands. Pared it down, and Raider was certainly in the top 2 or 3 that we got. And what I like about it so much is the 21st century B-21 and the name Raider connects us back to our rich heritage. And there's no richer heritage than what happened on April 18th, 1942. The 80 brave men in 16 B-25s that took off the Hornet and showed the Japanese that we had will, we had fight, and changed, many would say, the course of that war. And so, hey, folks, we are so honored to have Lieutenant Colonel Dick Cole, the co-pilot with Jimmy Doolittle, with us today. So, Colonel Cole, thank you, sir. A tribute to you. And the last thing I'll say about it is I think it's a name that'll actually stick. I think people will actually call it the Raider, and I think people will go around saying, hey, I'm a Raider aircrew guy. You know, I'm a Raider driver, and I like that, so thanks.
Thanks, General Rand. So we got a question here for Randy Walden. It must be somebody who knows you, by the way. But so there's been some criticism mounting that the B-21 is classified and that the American public has a right to know greater details of a program that is expected to cost over $80 billion. Why is the program so classified, and when do you plan on declassifying the program?
Thank you, sir. Question's been asked multiple times. It truly is a balance of transparency and what we still need to protect from a national security objective. From the beginning, we have rolled out quite a bit of information. I'd say we've led greater than most programs out there that have this level of critical technology. We've also shared the full independent cost estimate associated with EMD and with what the average procurement unit cost is for each of the platforms. Overall, the program classification, and we maintain a security classification guide today, is centered around the fact that we're putting 30-plus years of what I'll say research and development and S&T investments into this platform, and they do need to be guarded just like most programs that have classified information. The Air Force is committed to transparency. We share, in fact, we probably spend quite a bit of time going over and talking to the 4 committees, professional staff, staff directors, and a number of members. And we will continue to do that and share, I'll say, the information associated with the program at the highest levels of classification with those elected officials. And then finally, we are looking at opportunities to declassify. And in order to do so, we're working closely with a number of folks within the intelligence community to make sure that we're not getting out in front of them and they have an opportunity to let us know exactly what timing and information makes sense for the nation. Thanks, Bob.
General Rand, thank you, Randy. General Rand, another question for you. The Air Force has stated that procuring the B-21 is one of its top 3 priorities. Recently, however, you have stated that the Air Force also needs to build a new nuclear cruise missile. Can you explain why we need a new cruise missile if we are already building a new bomber that is capable of penetrating an adversary's defenses?
Sure, I'll take a stab at that. We currently have the Alcom, the air-launched cruise missiles, so it's not new technology or innovation to have a nuclear cruise missile. The reason we have it, I think, is to give the President options, a viable option, a standoff capability, along with a direct attack capability so that we can hold any target at risk. I believe that's important, particularly, as I mentioned, in the A2AD environment. The enemy gets a vote. It's more difficult, and I don't want to put all our eggs in one basket that we'd have to do a direct attack with in this case, a B-21. So the why for a new missile is, as I said, survivability, reliability, and efficiency. Our current missile will be 40 years old in 2020, the Alcom. By the time we field the LRSO, that missile will be 50 years old. And it will not be able to, as we continue down this road, one, I can't ensure the President that the missile will get to its intended target because the enemy gets in a vote on that. And two, it's becoming increasingly difficult to maintain. The numbers are decreasing because to keep it reliable, we have to test it. So we're going through the stockpile, if you will. And again, as our chief said earlier today at a luncheon, how many of you are driving 50-year-old, cars? So I think we got our money's worth out of the Alcom, but it's time to replace it. And that's what we intend to do. And it's not just going to be the long-range standoff for the B-21. It will also replace the missile that we use on our B-52s, and we'll add it to the inventory on the B-2. So we'll get our money's worth on that one.
Thank you, General Rand. So, General Holmes, I've got one for you. In this fiscally tight budget environment, how is the Air Force going to be able to afford the B-21, LRSO, and the GBSD?
So, thank you, General Elder. I think after watching General Rand's video, you might want to ask yourself, how is the nation not going to be able to afford to upgrade the things that have provided us 70 years without war between great powers and have made the world a safer place? As our enemies update their systems and as we face the upgrade of the older systems that we have, General Rand talked about how old they are, how can we not do it? But when we set priorities on some systems, and you'll hear our senior leaders this week say, hey, our three top priorities are the F-35, the KC-46, and the B-21, what that priority means is that we're going to find a way to pay for those, and we're going to make those a priority in our budget. So in the A58, when we lay out a 30-year plan and try to make sure that what we're building is affordable, we start with those three things, and we make sure that we've got the money available in the budget to pay for them. And frankly, because we need to ensure that we'll be able to penetrate into enemy airspace and hold the targets at risk so that the President of the United States has options. There are certainly things we need to do to try to reduce the cost on these systems, and LRSO will continue to be a topic as we work through the budget process with the Department on what's the most cost-effective way to do that for the taxpayer. We're just beginning that GBSD program, and we need to continue to work the system as hard as we can to reduce the costs, to decide what has to be recapitalized and what doesn't. Those are part of a national policy decision, but we'll work within the Air Force budget to find ways to fund the nuclear enterprise, which is the foundation of the defense of us and our families.
Okay, thanks, General Holmes. Randy, one for you. The Air Force has argued that they've put together a sound acquisition strategy to deliver the B-21 on time and possibly even below cost. Why do you believe this particular program will be the exception to every other major acquisition program we have seen to date?
Not sure it's going to be a model program for all, but we're going to do the best we possibly can. Let me start with most good, solid acquisition strategies are based on, I'll say, very stable and achievable requirements. Since May of 2012, we've had that on the B-21. Gone through roughly 4 years of risk reduction phase, and last October is when we awarded the contract. And getting through GAO and the protest, the contractor's been off and running since February. The team has been working very hard, and all the times I've seen acquisition strategies executed, and especially in these early states, getting folks on the job, meaning they're cleared to the program and working, goes a long way in getting it kicked off properly. And I must say I'm very impressed with the way the team has taken off and made that a reality. We are going through and baselining the program with the contractor's help to include all the Tier 2 contractors, and to date that has gone very well. And we're looking forward to getting through, I'll say, the major milestones coming up, design reviews over the next following years. The contract, that keeps coming up every so often. Right now we've got a solid EMD contract, cost plus. The best part of that is it's incentivized for the contractor and certainly the government team to deliver on cost and on schedule. If they do not, then they'll be motivated to want to get back on that cost and schedule by not getting any award or fees associated with it. So the fixed price contract that we have to date for production, we have first 5 lots, 21 airplanes are going to be built. Usually that's the most expensive part of the lots. And right now I have all the indications that we should do quite well. In fact, the latest independent cost estimates suggest that we're going to beat the $550 million APUC number that you've seen in the press quite a few times. So I think we're ready to go. The act strategy is solid. The team is running, and looking forward to getting on with executing the program. Thanks, Bob.
Thanks, Randy. General Rand, an inevitable question about the numbers. There was a discussion of the Air Force buying 80 to 100 B-21s. So why are we now saying that the number is 100 B-21s?
Well, that's a good question. I think that it's important to understand that we haven't set the official number. I've been on record as saying that we need to start with a minimum of 100 B-21s. And my premise for that is looking at combatant commander requirements that we currently have, current real-world ongoing operations that we're currently in, and projecting 15, 20, 30, 50 years out of what I expect will be the ongoing requirements. So you have to have a starting point. You have to look at the total existing bomber fleet that we have now. We have 158 total bombers, B-52s, B-1s, and B-2s. And I just, gang, cannot for the life of me imagine that our United States Air Force and our nation could have one less bomber than it currently has today. And so we start with 100, and then as we manage the fleet and as we manage retiring some aspects of the fleet and bringing the B-21 in, we need to really dig our heels in on what should that ceiling be. My friend Mike Holmes next to me is helping with that. There's an Air Force analysis that's going on, the great Air Force Global Strikes homework, as we work on what should the overall bomber fleet be as we see it in 2030 to 2050. I'm going to stick to my guns, though. 100 is a minimum for the B-21.
Thanks, General Rand. There's actually a question about, and I think we'll give General Holmes a chance at this. Can you provide some insight on how Air Combat Command or how our regionals might employ the B-21 conventionally?
Well, so there's an Air Combat Command commander sitting in the room with us, and that's kind of his job to figure out. And there's a Global Strike Command commander who we transferred the bombers into Global Strike Command. So General Rand has the conventional piece as well as the nuclear piece for all the bombers. But if I can get a head nod from both of them, I'll talk about that just a little bit, knowing that that's their business. So we just completed a study that we called Air Superiority 2030. And if you'll bear with me a second, why am I talking about that when we talk about how we're going to employ the bomber? Well, as we worked through that study over the course of a year, we looked at a whole bunch of different ways to get the targets that we care about, and we ended up drilling down to kind of two cases. Either a case where you did it all with standoff, so you used long-range standoff weapons to get to targets that are well-protected in integrated air defenses, or we looked to see if we'll still need a penetrating capability. And ultimately, we decided that the nation will still require a penetrating capability because even with the best standoff weapons, you have to penetrate with sensors and with the command and control to be able to close the kill chain to be able to get to targets. So we're going to have a penetrating capability to do that, and we're going to have a family of systems that make sure that we can get close that kill chain. You know, it'll take all the pieces together to make sure that you can find the target, that you can fix it in three-dimensional space, that you can track it until you're ready to target it, that you can assign a weapon system to it to target, that you can engage the target, and then you can assess and make sure that you've done it. That'll take a family of systems. The B-21 will certainly play a key role in making sure that we can get that done. And so I think you'll see it employed particularly in places where you have to penetrate a long ways against sophisticated defenses. You'll see it employed in places where we have to bring the tankers further back because of the adversary's ability to push us further back with anti-access systems. And you'll see it operate integrated into strike packages that bring that whole family of systems and all of the CAF, all the tools that both Global Strike Command and Air Combat Command bring together.
Thanks, Ron.
Bob, can I jump on a bit?
Definitely.
Just to put it in perspective, as you know, two of our fleets right now are nuclear capable, called dual capable, and one isn't. The B-1 is conventional, but all three of our bomber fleets are gainfully employed every single day. And I sometimes think people need to realize you get a lot of buck for your bang with the bombers, because we're not just sitting there, as the video said, twiddling our thumbs. Okay, we always are ready to support Admiral Haney and the STRATCOM O-plan, but on any given day, we're gainfully employed. Right now, we have bombers, B-52s over in CENTCOM supporting General Votel and the AFCENT fight that we're in against ISIS in Syria and Iraq. We have bombers that are at Guam supporting Admiral Harris and Shags O'Shaughnessy right now in the PACOM region, power projection missions in East and South China Sea and along the coast of Korea on a routine basis. We support Admiral Tidd in his JIATF South and counter transnational organized crime missions with our B-2s, our B-1s and B-52s. We're over there supporting General Walters and General Scaparrotti in EUCOM with our bomber assurance and deterrence and power projection missions. And so conventionally, we're in every combatant commander's O-plan. We are gainfully employed, and the young men and women, our maintainers and air crews, are pedaling really fast. And that's not in, as I said, in addition to the mission that we have to support Admiral Haney and our nuclear, and the President's nuclear mission. Thanks.
Thanks, General Rand. Actually, there was a related question, too, that you might want to take on, which is, which weapons do you expect the B-21 to carry?
Yeah, we won't take a step backwards. Obviously, we're right now planning from the nuclear perspective. Its two main weapons will be the B-61-12, which is going to be a very much upgraded and necessary upgrade to our B-61 series, a direct attack munition, which will have several good purposes. It's a better weapon, and number two, will allow us to retire other B-61 weapons. So that's a twofer, if you will. And then, as I said, I can't imagine a B-21 discussion without the LRSO on it. So that will be the nuclear capability. And it'll continue to carry the same or improved weapons that our B-52s, B-2s, and B-1s are able to carry now.
Thanks, General Rand. For Randy Walden, there's a couple of related questions about RCO. One is asking, will the B-21 remain within the RCO indefinitely, or will it transition to another program office? And a related question is, how is the program structured to ensure that you can maintain the technical advantages as time goes on and the threats change?
Okay. So let me start with, right now I don't see us transitioning the program. We've got a program office that really brings in, I think, the best of the Air Force acquisition system. We're leveraging about 70% of the offices out of Wright-Patterson Air Force Base under Air Force Life Cycle Management Center, and about 30% of it resides here at Bowling, at JBAB. And combine those two, you get, I think, the best of the subject matter experts on building some of the most advanced type bombers or aircraft in the world, coupled with streamlined acquisition. And our overarching ability to get this done is that we work basically for a board of directors and they have personal insight and oversight of the execution of the program. So we do work closely with others out there to ensure that we can make this program get delivered on time and on cost. Along the lines of how we make it viable for the future, right now the RCO has had open mission systems, think open architecture for avionics. We've been working that for a handful of years now. I've been working closely with industry to come up with that standard. Industry has been, I would say, working very hard, probably leading in most cases since they're the ones that actually have to implement how that would work. The goal with OMS and that standard is to break down truly the proprietary nature of what industry believes they can bring to bear, but more important, be able to own the technical baseline within the government as much as we possibly can. And you probably have seen that in the press already. A number of platforms through some of the independent research and development going on within the companies has actually flown, built in and flown and demonstrated OMS in an air environment. And right now there's indicators out there that suggest that that open architecture type of a standard can save upwards to anywhere from 50 to 80% in cost and potentially schedule. Hopefully that helps, Bob.
Hey, General Elder, let me mention that with the RCO from the, if you will, the force provider and the OT&E guy, I couldn't be happier with the relationship I have with my friend Waldo here. It's seamless right now. And we have a great relationship, and the chief wanted something close to D.C., but didn't have to work for him. So we have a half a dozen plus Air Force Global Strike Airmen that are right here in the D.C. area that represent the service requirements and also can go directly to the chief and are working every day with Waldo's team, and it's a great relationship. And so there's no rub. That discussion of when is down the road. We're all pedaling real fast. And I'll just add that we're off to a great start with our industry partner, with Northrop Grumman. And I think that three legs of the stool, the service, RCO, and Northrop Grumman, I'm really, really grateful for the way the relationship has formed quickly, and I'm expecting it to continue and great things to come from it.
Thanks, General Rand. General Holmes, there was a couple of questions that came in similar to an earlier question, but it talks about NC3 related systems that are systems that are involved in NC3 but not the bombers or LRSO, so tanker, air-based defense, and the UH-1 helicopter, and how are those programs faring with all these other competition for resources?
Thanks again, General Elder. So, yep, we do have a resource shortage. And it's not so much in the current 5-year defense plan as it is in the 2 that come after that. So as a long-range planner, you tend to think in multiples of that 5-year defense program, and we try to think in pretty good detail about 4 of those. And that second and third one are where 3 kind of bow waves come together for the Air Force. So we have the nuclear recapitalization bow wave that we talked about, and it includes even those extra things that you discussed. We have the space enterprise vision bow wave that we're going to have to recapitalize the space-based infrared system and our satellite strategic comm systems, and we're going to have to make a decision. Will we just build the same thing we had there before, or will we take steps to make it more effective and more resilient as space becomes a warfighting environment? And then we face a third one in recapitalizing our combat air forces. Because of decisions that we made to cancel the F-22 program, because the F-35 program couldn't be accelerated as fast as we would like it to, there's a bathtub out there in our combat air forces that we're going to have to address. So we do have real problems in making that happen, which is why we want to do things like that, the missile field helicopter or the UH-1 replacement. It's important to move those to the left where we can, and so go ahead and get that program going and get the funding there now before we get into the bow wave. And more we'll be looking to try to spread things out. So we'll pick issues that we can get done now with money available before we get into that second and third 5-year defense program. We'll try to pick things where we can that we can push until after, and then we'll work to get the funding that we need to build the Air Force we need in the middle 2. And ultimately, we'd like to do it with additional money, We'd like to do it that way, but if not, we'll have to balance within the funding that the taxpayers give us, and we'll make choices between capability, capacity, and readiness to do that.
Thanks, General Holmes. General Rand, a couple of related questions I guess you'd expect. One is, where's the B-21 going to be based? And I guess a related question is, are there going to be any bombers retired as the B-21 comes on board?
I caught the first part, Bob. Repeat the second part.
The second one is basically which airplanes are going to be retired, or when will other bombers be retired?
Yeah, that's a great. I got a secret I can't tell y'all. No, I'm teasing. The basing, let's talk about that one first. You know the Air Force has a strategic basing process that it uses. We haven't entered into that discussion yet. However, let's not be coy about it. We have great bomber bases with great infrastructure that are really good at what they're doing, and so there's no reason not to believe that some of our current bomber bases won't be suitable locations for the B-21. As far as the retirement flow, Mike Holmes and I and the other MAJCOM commanders, and certainly with the A9, we are very much in discussion about that. And part of what Mike was talking about, getting that combat Air Force balance right, what we've got to balance our decision is the capacity. And where do we harvest maintainers, and where do we harvest air crews from if we were not to retire one of our current bombers? Realizing also that some of these bombers, the reason we're building a B-21 is because of that reliability and efficiency that I talked about. And it's becoming increasingly difficult to maintain reliability and efficiency. So there's no doubt in my mind that we're going to reduce a couple of the fleets once the B-21 is made in sufficient numbers. We just haven't decided yet the order that's going to be in.
Thanks, General Rand. Rand, there's a couple of questions about technology and it has to do with what kind of challenges you face in an RCO with getting American technology. Is there an industrial-based problem in U.S. right now, and is there something that should be being done to make your job or your replacement's job easier?
No, from a technology point of view, I think it's been 3+ decades since the B-2 has been out. So this nation and the defense industry has had and the government has had ample time to invest in areas like new stealth technology, et cetera. So from turning to the American industry and having available technology to be able to build this type of bomber, I think the timing is right in my mind. Right now, the overarching theme from our perspective is the integration of that wonderful technology, and how difficult will that be to build this next generation bomber to achieve the goals that Global Strike Command wants and combatant commands out there want. Right now, I'd say I'm confident, but cautious at the same time on doing the integration. I think the team is ready to go, and when I say the team, I'm not talking about just the government team, I'm talking about the industrial team out there. Right now, we've got a great prime contractor that's ready and willing to make this happen. We've got 7 sub-tier contractors out there, the best in the nation. They're going to help us build this bomber, and I think the timing is right. We're on contract. The teams are ready, and now it's time to execute and build this bomber and field it.
Thanks, Randy. General Rand, a question about a role for the reserves and the Guard with the B-21.
That's the question.
That's the question. Is there going to be? I'm sorry. Is there going to be a role for the reserves?
Absolutely. Undoubtedly, they're going to continue to play a major role in our bomber operations. As you know right now, or some of you might know, at Barksdale, for the 2nd Bomb Wing and the 307th Bomb Wing, we do our operational B-52 flying there, and the 307th is an Air Force Reserve Command wing that does the formal training for the B-52, as well as it has a group of a B-1 group at Dias that the 307th has ADCON and OPCON of. In addition, at Whiteman right now, We have 2 wings. There are 3 wings at Whiteman. One is an A-10 Air Force Reserve Command wing. Then we have the 131st Bomb Wing, which is a guard wing. And we have the 509th Bomb Wing, which is our active duty wing. And those 2 wings do all the B-2 flying for the entire United States Air Force. So the relationship is going to continue regardless of the B-21 coming on or not. I think the question that we all should spend our time on with total force isn't a matter of if. That decision has been made and it's working well. The question that we wrestle with, I think, as MAJCOM commanders is how much, where, and specifically what roles are roles that we can divide between the 3 components. And I'm always looking for areas where we can either increase capacity or change roles, and so we'll continue to do that.
Thanks, General Rand. We're getting close to the end of time. There was a couple of questions that came in related to manning for the airplane. Specifically, though, there was talk about the airplane originally being optionally manned, and is that still in the plans? And do you anticipate that there would be only pilots on the airplane, or do you know that yet? And I guess that's maybe we give that to
I'll start, but General Rand, pile on at will. So there's been a lot of discussion, manned versus unmanned. Right now it's manned, going in manned, and with the options to do unmanned in the future. But recall this platform is a part of a much larger family of systems. And in that family, it's going to bring to bear probably some of the best capability the nation, and I'll say the defense industry, can bring with that type of capability. So from an unmanned point of view, it's had a basic requirement stated. The question is, what's the right timing to bring that level of capability together with this type of platform? General Rand?
Thanks, Randy. Yes, I was around when the initial discussions were about whether it should be manned or unmanned. We're planning on being manned. I think Randy said it well. I think with the family of systems, there will be other systems that will be supporting it that aren't going to be manned. And if you had to pin me down, I like the man in the loop, the pilot, the woman in the loop very much, particularly as we do the dual capable mission with the nuclear weapons.
There was a couple of questions that I think you kind of addressed already there, Randy, but what kind of the process that you use in RCO to stay ahead of the technology and the threat, and could you talk about why RCO is so different and why you're so confident that the airplane is going to stay ahead of the threat?
Well, I'm not sure the RCO is the only organization that can stay ahead of the threat. There's a lot of folks working on some of the best, I'll say, capability out there to stay ahead of that threat. Suffice it to say, our organization, the RCO, was stood up to be as lean as possible, and I don't mean that in a sense of just low numbers of people. I'm talking about from the standpoint of how much bureaucracy. The organization set up by then General Jumper and Dr. Roach as the secretary was to actually try to get through the bureaucracy at a minimal amount of time and try to get to the decision makers to get on with the business of building and fielding some pretty awesome capability. And I think for the most part we've done that. The goal, the process is pretty simple. Minimize the amount of paperwork, maximize the amount of capability you can build with the help of defense industry, and deliver that capability to the MAJCOMs. And then if we do this all together, and I'll say as transparent as we possibly can, for the most part, we get a good product out. And we may take some, I'll say, risk out there, but I'd say each program, no matter how much bureaucracy you have, will take on similar risk. The question is how much is too much risk, and what is the timing required? To date, I think we've got a pretty good balance when it comes to acquiring the weapon systems as from the stated requirements we have. Hopefully that helps.
It does, and I think we are out of time, although I think our panel members will be happy to hang around. But how about thanks to our panel members today for their very thought-provoking discussion. So we have copies of the Air Power Classics as a token of AFA's thanks for being with us.